Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Assalamu alaikum. My brothers and sisters, as we enter the month of Ramadan and exit, we have something known as the moon sighting. And many people call it moon fighting, unfortunately, for the following reasons. So we have a few different opinions as to how the moon shall be considered having been sighted. One says that if the moon is sighted in the east, it's incumbent upon the people even in the west to accept it, that the moon was sighted, and everyone should be fasting together and everyone should be having Eid together based on the first place that saw the moon legitimately. So that's one opinion. There is another opinion that says no, we have to go according to the horizons. If the horizon changes, then you are not obliged to accept the moon of a different horizon. So if they see it in a different time zone altogether, then you're not obliged to accept their sighting, because it would have been impossible to see it where you are. Just like the times of prayers, it doesn't mean that it's time for Fajr in America, so the people in Australia need to do Fajr. They should stick to their own times. Just like the times of Tahajjud, for example, it doesn't mean it's Tahajjud in Africa, so the people in Europe need to fulfill their Tahajjud. So that opinion states that if it is sighted in a certain area, a certain region, then each region should have their own sighting. Now, these are the two mainstream opinions, and both of them have their own credibility and evidence. There is no point in fighting each other. This has been going on for many, many decades, for a long, long time. People say, no, well, technologically we're advanced. You can now tell when the moon is visible, when it's not visible. Well, some people have seen the moon before it was born. And some people have said that they've seen the moon with witnesses at a time when others said it was impossible to have seen it. So we have to go, we can take the scientific guidelines as guidelines, but the scientific guidelines are not necessarily the final say, because you know that we have to see the moon with a naked eye. And by the way, it brings rise to a third opinion that doesn't even sight the moon anymore. They just decide, you know what, according to the calculations, this is how it should be, and they've decided it for years to come. That opinion is not mainstream, but there are a growing number of people who are following it. However, the first two opinions I mentioned, to be honest with you, let's not fight with each other. If someone starts Ramadan today and someone else starts it tomorrow, you know, there is scope of permissibility of that, but there is no scope of permissibility of swearing each other, fighting each other, and actually behaving like hooligans, astaghfirullah, sorry to use the term, but it's facts. People actually start saying, you guys are not Muslim and so on. These are opinions, legitimate opinions of the fuqaha and the jurists, derived from Quranic evidence and evidence of the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the predecessors. So as much as people have a preferred opinion close to their mosque, you know, my strongest advice to you is, in your locality and your area, the bulk of the Muslims, if they are doing something, join them. It's permissible, it's okay, not a problem. Join, unless, I'm talking about the moon here. So, because they are both permissible opinions, obviously if it's something besides the moon and the bulk are doing something that's totally wrong, then you wouldn't follow the bulk. But generally here we're talking about the moon sighting. This is good advice. I'm sitting in Masjid Nabawi, and obviously I'm speaking about countries that I come from. I come from Zimbabwe, South Africa, Southern Africa, and I know that there is a problem, for example, in Europe, in parts of America, in Australia, various other places. You know, if there was one central authority, it would have made it much easier, but there isn't in most countries. If there is, then you follow that central authority. But if there isn't, then you need to know that, look, don't fight each other. There is scope of following the first moon sighting that there has been across the globe, so for as long as it's legitimate. Some people argue, oh, those ones are not legitimate and these ones are not legitimate, so that brings about another issue. But there is also scope for following the regional moon sighting, which is in your area, and if you haven't seen it, you don't have to start the Ramadan or have the Eid. I thought I'd quickly give you these few pieces of advice in 5 minutes. Barakallah feekum. Allah bless the ummah. Unity is not in uniformity. It is in respecting differences of opinion. Assalamu alaikum.
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور، أحب الوفي الأمين